Good morning, I'm meteorologist Greg Shoup. I am with meteorologist Adam Solarczyk, and we have the pleasure of talking to another meteorologist in the Next Star Station Network, and that is Krista McEnany. She is the morning meteorologist at the NBC, or CBS, I'm sorry, CBS 4 in Indianapolis. How are you today?
Hey, we're doing really well. Certainly have a lot of energy going with our active forecast and our active weather underway. So we're looking forward to how things play out and just hoping to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking about a very unique situation. Now, our northern areas and western areas have seen snow since early this morning. We're already seeing accumulations. However, this front, it's just sitting towards the northwest. Actually, it's in Allen County right now. Allen County is a huge county. It's about 300 miles. So we've had it in the northwestern part of Allen County for the last probably hour or so, and it's just starting to move towards the downtown area and southern part of the county. But what we were talking about, which was kind of unique, is that this front, the way it's positioned, is actually going to hit Indianapolis and Fort Wayne about the same time.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting the way this front is coming through and the fact that we're both getting in on this transition from rain into a mix then snow at the same time with the way it's curving up to the north and east. So I imagine we'll both be tracking some very quickly changing conditions as this front is moving through. So it's going to be an exciting forecast. But it's been a tricky one too.
Oh, it has been, definitely, because of this low down towards the south. And you've probably been doing this for a number of years, I would imagine. So have I. I don't know whether I've seen a situation like this where we actually have, now I know when they talk about the 78 blizzard here, it was similar, but those two lows kind of phased. I don't know if I've seen a situation where we have a front and then that moisture from the Gulf kind of meeting up at the same time and all this abundant moisture coming in. Can you remember a time when we've had kind of a situation like this?
You know, not in my career. I personally haven't. I was actually talking with our chief meteorologist early this morning about once this is all said and done and we kind of reflect on how things actually played out and the setup we have, this is likely going to be a storm that they write papers on later on in the future just because of this very unique setup and just how wide-ranging this storm system is, not just here in Indiana, but stretching from Texas all the way to Maine.
Yeah, so whenever we were looking at the models, all the model data coming in even last week, and through the weekend, it's been pretty remarkably consistent where they've had that heaviest swath, at least for us, for snowfall. And the amounts have been varying. How have the models been handling it for you guys?
You know, it's been very interesting. Another thing I was discussing this morning with my colleagues is just how the American models have been very consistent on where they want to put some of that heavy snow, while some of the other models have kind of varied on those snow totals, even just from run to run. Now, our focus has been for the heaviest totals over the entirety of the storm to be off in our north and our northwestern counties, and that's actually where we're seeing that transition now. And even at this time, that snow coming through, we're seeing snowfall rates that are looking to be pretty heavy, about an inch an hour that could be falling on into the morning with additional snow as we head into the afternoon. But as we get through this first wave, so what's coming through here in our area does kind of break apart as we head into the late evening hours, and then we get another wave of this as we head into tomorrow. And it doesn't target our northern counties as much. I do certainly think that we'll continue to build on some of those snow totals, but where it's gotten tricky once again is in our southern counties, where it initially looked to be a pretty sharp cutoff into some lower snow totals. It's now starting to bring in some heavier bands that I'm wondering if we're going to have some of those heavier snowfall rates by tomorrow, late into the morning, into the early afternoon, and if those snow totals are actually going to be adjusted, something I'll be looking at very closely as we kind of get more data in as this storm progresses. But that is still a question in mind, still some of those heavier bands coming through and how those will impact our overall totals.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed about this too, and it's another very unique situation, is, and you try to explain it to the viewer, we've had kind of a big storm with all of this moisture, and then all of that moisture kind of gets cut off, and we see Arctic air move in. We get snow. I don't want to get too tech talk here, but we get a much higher snow ratio, maybe 8-to-1 to 10-to-1 today, with lots and lots of moisture. I call it heart attack snow because, you know, people shoveling it. It's very heavy. And then tomorrow, maybe even 15, maybe even 20-to-1. I mean, we've got our high tomorrow of 19 degrees, and you have something similar.
Right, absolutely. That's actually a discussion that we've been having over these past few days, is just how much of a role these snowfall ratios are going to play into this, especially as we get into tomorrow and we get more of that powdery snow that is going to produce those higher ratios. And as you mentioned, typically we would go with an 8-to-1 or a 10-to-1. That's the standard that we think of when snowfall is in the forecast. But with this type of air mass that will be in place when that next round comes on through, I agree with you completely that we could see very high snowfall ratios, and that's going to play a big impact on just how much snow it lays down. So even at this point, while things are underway, there are still some questions on how this finishes.
Yeah, and then the other variable, because we have such a tight pressure gradient, I promise I won't get too techie here, but we have such a tight pressure gradient. The winds are, I mean, we're forecasting gusts of up to 30 miles per hour, and you get, you know, not so much the heavy snow we're getting today, but you get that powdery snow near blizzard-like conditions.
Yeah, that's also another concern. So those winds for us are, you know, across much of the area, across much of the state. They're going to be picking up, as you're right. That pressure gradient tightens up as we head into the evening hours, and then windy conditions on into Friday too. So this storm system, you know, is out of here by late Thursday, early Friday. But even as we get into Friday, with the fact that that snow, as we just discussed, is going to be so powdery, completely correct in that concern that we also have here, that I think Friday is going to be a pretty tricky travel day. Very cold temperatures, so we're not going to have the aid of warmth in general helping melt anything away. And then on top of that, we're actually going to have a lot of blowing snow too. So even though we won't have snow coming down, I still imagine there will be some areas, especially a lot of rural communities out here, that will have difficulty with visibility and just getting around, even though this storm has passed.
Yeah, and one of the things, and I know Adam's done a couple of reports on this week, a lot of, especially the rural communities. Now, Fort Wayne and Indianapolis are two of Indianapolis, of course, the largest city, Fort Wayne, the second largest city. There is a budget for the solution that we can use below 20 degrees to clear the roads. A lot of these rural communities don't have that budget. So Adam, I mean, what's your research on that?
Yeah, it's the magnesium chloride, I believe, is what they can use to kind of get rid of that snow. That's the more pricey option rather than salt. And whenever temperatures are going to drop down as low as they're going to be on Friday, it's very likely that the snow is going to stick around even into the weekend before we start to finally warm back up and help to have that aid the melting process along with any kind of salt or any kind of product that they put out there.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you said it, but I heard it someplace, the cost.
Yeah.
Was it three
it's
to
about
five
3
times?
to 5 times as more.
Yeah. So,
wow.
I mean, you know, you lay that stuff down, and then you got to measure it, and especially in a city like Indy, you got to measure that with, okay, the wind's going to blow the snow right back on the road. Do we go out and use this stuff up? Because we probably only have a limited amount of this stuff. Do we go out and use this stuff up and clear the roads, or we just shut everything down on Friday?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because if they lay it down, then the snow just blows on top of it. You're just scooping it away as they plow those roads again. So that is a very interesting scenario that I imagine a lot of our communities are in here as well.
And then, not only Friday, but, you know, with radiational cooling that's going to take place overnight Friday night into Saturday morning, we're forecasting below zero temperatures, and then another day where it's not going to get any warmer on Saturday.
Right. We're talking about Indianapolis alone. At -5 early Saturday morning. Some of our other counties, especially in our north and northwestern areas, could see, you know, closer to -10 or more. on top of a wind chill with that. So we are also looking at some just bitter cold air that's going to make all of this much more difficult as we get into the weekend, even though the snow itself will have moved on.
Yeah, so you go from, yesterday was 51 here, you go from that to lower 30s today, falling into the 20s, and then you go into this bitter cold weather, and with the wind chill, it might even be dangerous to be out cleaning up areas.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, dangerous just to be out cleaning up. And then we're also warning people about their pets outside and just how cold it is, taking care of them as well. So, you know, I'd like to say that this is just a couple of days. Once the snow's done, we're done with this. But this is something that's really going to last on into the weekend, too. And once the snow is gone, we have all sorts of other concerns to still be talking about just to get through the cold that's to follow.
Oh, absolutely. And Adam he worked last weekend, and so he had kind of the luxury of looking at things. And boy, I mean, just looking at some of those weekend models, you were seeing kind of the same thing we're seeing today.
Yes, so remarkably, the model stayed pretty consistent, as I was mentioning earlier, through the weekend, even into this morning. The slight shift southward for that second round that we were talking about earlier is really the only big difference. The amounts have come down too, as we've gotten a better idea on what the temperatures are going to look like. But some of those earlier amounts were very impressive, and still this round that we're going to get just today is looking impressive as well.
And also, and maybe you can share this with Krista, you did a story this morning about, you know, our 2-day snow total, and actually people think of the blizzard of 78 as the biggest one. It's not, and we could break that over 2 days easily.
Yeah, that's 14.3. That was set back in 1964, if I remember correctly. That was on March 10th and 11th. So that's the one that is just 2 days. That's since 1911 here in Fort Wayne. How does this stack up statistically for you guys in Indy?
You know, for us, that's something we were discussing too as we were looking at our top snowstorms. And while we think it'll easily break into the top 20, most likely, there's a very good chance that it'll break into maybe the top 5 to 10. So for Indianapolis, those totals here, I don't think that will actually outdo any of those top 5 snowstorms that we have on record, but I do think it could make it into that 5 to 10 possibility, and then certainly within that top 20. Now, if we were to actually take those numbers that we're going to see in our northern counties, where we could be seeing a foot and a half of snow in some of those areas, then certainly this would be ranking as one of the top, if not the top snowstorm. But for Indianapolis itself, with the totals a little bit lower here, not expecting it to reach that top 5, but it's still going to be impressive nonetheless.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what are your snow totals? What are you forecasting?
Yeah, so for the Indianapolis area, so we have, you know, I want to say it's a beautiful looking snowfall map, just it's so colorful, and we have all these different layers going through it. But in our northern counties, we're talking about areas 12 to 18 inches, some spots in our far northwestern counties. I wouldn't even rule out that some areas could see more than 18 inches of snow. But then as we look closer towards that I-70 corridor cutting through Marion County and across maybe a little bit up 69 too, I think that total lessens closer to about 8 to 12 inches, and then it gradually goes down in little bands. I'd say about another 6 to 8, and 3 to 5, and then our very far southern counties, I'd say just a few inches of snowfall, just because I think we will have quite a bit of sleet eating away at those totals before we get rid of that sleet and then that snow starts to lay down.
Just so people watching this on the web know, on WANE.com, we have got a couple of different stories. One is just the snow total, so you'll be able to see that. I think our latest snowfall total was about 15 total between the 2 days. Kind of interestingly enough for us, as Adam was talking about that low kind of sliding down a little farther south, our southern counties are not going to really even be into the snow until later this afternoon. However, because the snow is going to be so significant and it's going to snow so heavily, they're almost going to catch up with us today, which is another unique situation, because normally if you're forecasting this thing, you only have a limited amount of moisture to work with, and then you only have if that gets taken by sleet, snow, rain. This one, we have that, but we have so much moisture that, I mean, even our southern counties are going to get heavy snowfall and almost equal our northern counties.
Yeah, and that's the question with our forecast here, especially as I was looking at more updates, new data coming in this morning, is that little wave that comes through, especially by late morning tomorrow into the early afternoon, that's very close to that transitional line. Wondering if we're actually going to end up with even higher snowfall totals. Some of the guidance wants to bring in about 10 inches of snowfall in our southern counties, making it pretty close to what we'd see here in Marion County and Indianapolis. I haven't jumped on that just yet, but it is still something that is you know, right there at top of mind, looking at how things do play out and wondering if we're going to make some of those adjustments as we go into tomorrow to bring some of those heavier snow totals into our southern counties.
I just had one more question that wasn't totally meteorologically related. As far as your city is concerned, here, and it was amazing because everybody was listening to the forecast, and we've been advertising it for so long. That's what we call it in meteorological terms, is we advertise a storm for so long that yesterday they just shut everything down.
Oh, wow.
And so the schools are not in, the businesses, a lot of them are not open. I just kind of wondered how it is for you down there.
You know, they haven't shut anything down yet. I was just looking at our travel advisory map, though, and some of our northern counties do have some advisories in there. Nothing shut down just yet, but I do wonder what adjustments will be made here locally as we do, see these numbers ramp up. Here in Marion County, we're not really looking for a whole lot of snow here until we get to tomorrow. That'll be our heavier snow totals. More of a concern for ice today, but that alone is quite a concern. But I don't remember the last time I've actually seen Marion County just shut everything down, unless there's something slipping my mind. But it's been quite some time. It would take a lot, but this is a pretty historic storm that we are moving through, so I wouldn't completely rule it out or even be surprised if that's how things did play out.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a tough commute for a lot of people going home this afternoon for you guys.
Yeah. Right, and so, that's something I was kind of curious. We talked about how, out in our rural counties, that some of the surrounding counties in your area have a budget and the differences of what they are able to put down. And of course, that difference will be the same thing here as far as our temperatures. But something we've been talking about a lot here today is the fact that so much of our area is in rain for so long today that our road crews can't do any pre-treating. So the concern of when things actually transition over to sleet, freezing rain, a mix, how quickly our road conditions just for today into tomorrow are going to go downhill. I'm not sure if your road crews have been approaching anything differently. Doesn't matter where you are, you can't lay down any
Right.
treatment in the rain.
Yeah, we have the same problem, especially around Fort Wayne and towards the south, because we've had rain last night and this morning, so they didn't pre-treat at all. They're just kind of waiting. NDOT and I think they have 94 trucks in Fort Wayne. They're just waiting to go out in the snow right now, and that's all they can do. And of course, our northwestern counties already removing snow. Adam, did you have anything else?
Yeah, we were up in Kendallville, and we've already seen the road conditions deteriorate rapidly. As soon as we hit the Noble County line, leaving Allen County, that snow was already starting to fall, and it was already snow-covered roads. Couldn't see the lines, so
wow.
Snow was already up to an inch or two after it was probably snowing there for about an hour and a half.
And I think the other thing, and we know this well too, it's a different, tomorrow is going to be that powdery snow, which if it wasn't for the wind, it wouldn't be hard to drive. And I used to live in the Rockies, and you could have 25 inches of snow and drive off the next day. This wet snow is another animal, and it's very difficult to drive in, and I'm sure you guys are going to have to deal with that too.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting, the type of snow that we're getting today and the fact that we'll have that ice accumulation in some parts of the area first and just very light snow over to, as you mentioned earlier, with how cold between that lull, these temperatures are going to drop, and then the change in snow that we'll see. Honestly, that makes it even just hard to clean up, get scraped off the car, get that ice built up off the car when we have the transition in this type of snow as well. So the wind is really going to play a big factor into this.
Oh,
as
it
well.
absolutely is. Yeah, the wind. So hopefully you guys stay safe in this storm. I hope everybody makes it to work okay. There's a little bit of concern here for that over the next 24 hours.
Us too.
Yeah, but stay safe.
I wish that you guys, I hope that you guys make it there safely too, and that everybody in your community stays safe.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
of course, we are going to have another live stream this afternoon at, is it?
I believe it's 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock,
with
yeah.
Nicholas and Nathan.
Yeah, Nicholas Ferrari, our chief meteorologist, and Nathan Gidley will be here. Now, for that particular talkback, you will be able to add your questions to the WANE 15 Facebook page. So go to the Facebook page, and if you've been watching Krista and Adam and I this morning, and you say, well, I really wanted to ask this, this is going to be your chance to ask that this afternoon at 2 o'clock, same place, different time, and we're going to have a lot more data to deal with because it will have already been snowing here and in Indianapolis at that time. So we're going to have kind of a different landscape to really talk about at that time. So thank you very much, Krista. Thank you, Adam, for joining us as well. And we will keep you updated with frequent updates on how much snow we expect and when we expect it, of course, throughout the day on WANE.com.